What is up, everyone? Welcome into this Sunday night edition of Pushing the Pile. I'm Mike Renner. Joining me is none other than CBS NFL analyst John Breech. John, how you doing tonight, man?
Mike, I am awesome. And for people who are watching on YouTube or listening, I want everyone to know I am not Kyle Long. I get mistaken for him all the time, which is kind of crazy, you might think. I know, who doesn't see it? But no, it is Breech here in the saddle.
Yes, we're trying this new Sunday night show out, trying to get you guys some analysis a little bit quicker right off the backs of this 4 p.m. window. We'll be tracking some of these 4 p.m. games. We got the Carolina Panthers game coming to a close. That one's close. We got the Eagles-Ravens game coming to a close as well. We'll be talking about those as they get final. But first, we want to start off with some of the bigger storylines in the NFL. And this is the first one in our six-pack here on Sunday nights. The Bengals drop another high-scoring affair to the Pittsburgh Steelers, this time at home, dropped to 4-8, a 44-38 loss. That's it. It's over for the Cincinnati Bengals. They had some hope heading into this week if they kind of swept the Steelers because they faced them once more after this one. But I think this officially sticks a fork in the Cincinnati Bengals.
Mike, let me just say, as a Bengals homer who was born and raised in Cincinnati, I know you lived in Cincinnati for some time. I am that one guy who every week I'm like, you know what? Even though they lost, they're not out of it yet. They could still get hot and go to the playoffs. And if they do, no one wants to play the Bengals. But no, I'm sticking the fork in my own thigh because right now you are absolutely right. They are done. It is over. Their defense is an abomination. And really, I mean, that's the story of the season. It doesn't matter if you have a $60 million quarterback, $55 million quarterback who's throwing for 300 yards a game, 3 touchdown passes per game, and putting up historical numbers. It means nothing if your defense is horrible. And that's what is happening every single week. I mean, has it blown your mind that they have not been able to fix anything and that they are just this bad every week?
Oh, 100%. Because Lou Anarumo, heading into this season, it seemed like every offseason it was like, when's he going to get the head coaching job, right? Because he had done so much for them in those years where they went back-to-back AFC championship games. A lot of people said Joe Burrow and the offense, that was the guys that got the highlights, but it was the defense more often than not in the playoffs that was making the big stop at the end of games. And they didn't have any real big names or real household names. There was a lot of kind of afterthought free agents that put that together. But they've fallen off a cliff, 27.9 points per game in their losses this year. The most in NFL history for a team with at least 5 losses. So it's bad for the Cincinnati Bengals. Truly spectacular fall from grace on the defensive side of the football. And they're wasting one of Joe Burrow's prime years. They had to run it back now with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. They thought this was it. We're signing him to this, 1-year franchise tag because they thought they still had the window. But, man, that window looks like it's slammed shut. They just needed to draft better is the simple fact. They've drafted so poorly on the defense side of the ball. 9 top 100 picks on defense the last 3 years. And you would not know it by watching them play on a week-in and week-out basis.
Yeah, I mean, you look at how they built the roster. It's paid Joe Burrow a lot. Now they're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. It's signed offensive linemen out in free agency who haven't really panned out, although they have tried, but just haven't panned out. And as you said, you're not drafting well on defense. And when you're spending all your high picks on defensive players, they don't pan out. This is what happens. And the ugly part is that now, this was your free season with Jamar Chase. This was the season where you made Jamar Chase mad, skip all of training camp so that you could pay him almost nothing. And you have nothing to show for it. So now you have to give him $30 or $35 million. Now you're paying your quarterback and your receiver $90 million. And now you have to squeeze in everybody else and build your defensive roster while you're paying those 2 guys. So if you are a Bengals fan, this is absolutely the time to be depressed. There is no Christmas miracle coming. Sulk, cry, get it all out because this team is in trouble. I mean, their Super Window's not closed because they have Joe Burrow, but it is like only halfway open now.
It definitely goes to show, going back to the team building aspect, that if you want a long, extended Super Bowl window, it comes through the draft. They had to have drafted better after that. Back-to-back AFC championship games, just their draft picks since then have done darn near nothing in terms of fixing this roster, in terms of finding impact from those positions that they targeted. And that's that. Like, they had so many free agents on the defense side of the football that, you just couldn't pay, or just when they're free agents, usually they're on the older side. It's not going to last forever. And they never replenished it with that young talent, unfortunately. All right, we got the NFC South is our next in this 6-pack on Sunday night here of topics to get through. And we got the end as Carolina and Bryce Young just led another fourth quarter, 2-minute touchdown drive not to tie it up this time. This one's to go ahead. They look like they're on track now, barring a miracle from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to come back and upset them at home. Bryce Young looks like the real deal over the past 3 weeks, but now the NFC South could be. Now we'll discuss the Falcons one off the start and then get to the Buccaneers when that one goes final. But the Falcons lose earlier today in heartbreaking fashion. Kirk Cousins throws 4 interceptions, a game they really should have lost. Younghoe Koo misses a field goal in that one. Just all around regrets for the Atlanta Falcons, but still atop the division here at 6-6 as it currently stands.
Yeah, it really blows my mind because when we were talking about the Falcons a few weeks ago, kind of heading into November, they beat the Cowboys and they had improved to, I think, 6-3. Yeah, there we go. They 6-3, and it just felt like, all right, this Kirk Cousins signing's paid off. They are going to sail right to this NFC South title. And now we are just watching them choke away games. They choked away a game against the Saints. They got destroyed by the Broncos. And then you think, you know what, maybe they'll reset during that Week 12 bye. They'll kind of fix anything they need to fix. Come out here. You get a home game against a team that has to fly across the country, play one of those 10 a.m. Pacific games on your body. That is right for a win. No, you hold Justin Herbert in that offense to under 200 yards. You think you would win. But, Mike, this just feels like a game that Kirk Cousins just threw it away. It's as simple as that. You can't have your quarterback go out and throw 4 interceptions, 2 of them in the fourth quarter, throw a pick 6. And with the way Cousins has been playing over the past few weeks, it really feels like he's regressed. He looked, he struggled the first couple weeks. It looked like he was trying to feel himself out with the Achilles injury. He got hot, and now he's taking a couple steps back. And if I had to bet money right now on a winner in the NFC South, I'm not sure I would take the Falcons, even though they're currently in first place.
Yeah, they just don't look like a good football team. And it starts at the top when your quarterback has thrown 6 picks in the last 3 weeks. It's like, that's not a winning recipe, especially when they are a running team. That's what they want to do. They want to feed Bijan Robinson. They want to feed this backfield. When that's the case, you got to take care of the football. If you want to play that style, you better not be throwing it to the other team. Kirk now 13 picks on the season. That's his most since 2022. Looks on track to when he had 14. That was his career high. So this is untenable at this point. If they have, any just aspirations of getting beyond just winning the division, I think winning the division is even up in play, obviously, with where the Bucs are at, nipping on their heels at 5-6. But if they want to even win a playoff game, should they win the division, it's looking like they're going to be big time dogs. Should they even make it into the door?
Yeah, I don't think that, it looks like whoever wins the NFC South is going to be the 4 seed, and then you have that 5 seed that could be the Packers or the Vikings. I don't think anyone in the world is going to be picking that NFC South winner to win that opening round playoff game, even though they will get it at home. And yeah, you can't feel comfortable when your quarterback's playing like this, especially when this is the point when your quarterback's supposed to get hot, when they're supposed to play well. Maybe the Falcons and Bengals can coordinate some sort of trade, get Joe Burrow to Atlanta so that the Falcons can win the Super Bowl and Joe Burrow can experience some success. I don't know. I know the trade deadline has passed, but that's just really what it feels like where Kirk Cousins is going downhill at the wrong time.
Are we debating at all turning the keys over to Michael Penix at this point?
Ooh. I think you give it some thought. They play the Vikings next week, week 14. And if Kirk lays another egg, has another 2 interception game, you're still going to be in first place in the NFC South, even at 6-7, even if you lose. And at that point, I'm giving some serious thought to playing Penix because you're not going to win games if your quarterback's just throwing multiple interceptions every week.
Yeah, Falcons fans, they got to be looking around at what Washington's doing, at what Denver's doing, even what Drake May is doing in New England, even if they're not winning games and looking good. And just having this little bit of FOMO, just being like, man, I wish we could see it. Because that throw he had, the deep down the sideline one, now was dropped the other day. But one of his 6 dropbacks on the season, Michael Penix, was a dime down the football field. He was a guy that was supposed to be NFL ready, right? 6 years starting. We saw with the other guys who were or 6 years playing college football, 5 years as a starter. We saw what the other 2 5-year starters have done in Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels. They look ready very early on. So I think if it really does start going south, I'm on board. I think it's just too early. But what I've seen of late has been really bad for Kirk Cousins. There's no sugarcoating it. It has been ugly. All right, we're going to take a quick break here as that Bucs-Panthers game goes into overtime. We'll be hitting the playoff pictures at the end of this, but we got 4 more points to go through in our 6-pack on Sunday night here right after this.
Today, with the support of the NFL, a new playbook is being written. The National Gay Flag Football League provides inclusive play for over 4,000 LGBTQ plus players and allies. Here is a home with no penalty for being you.
All right, let's start with a somber note. As Azeez Al-Shaair, one of the toughest moments to watch in the early window, with a brutal hit on Trevor Lawrence. I think anyone that watched it was left thinking, not only should it be an ejectable offense, but maybe, just maybe a little bit more than that. One of the worst hits, reminiscent of when Trent Green, way back in the early 2000s, took a hit in the helmet while he was sliding. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence knocked out of that game with a concussion, didn't come back, probably unlikely to come back anytime soon. What did you think of that hit, seeing that one live?
I mean, it blew my mind. My thought was that the refs should have just taken Al-Shaair and hey, man, we're going to walk you to the tunnel. You're done. Right? You cannot play another down today. You cannot play another down the rest of this season. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head too with talking about Trent Green, because when you look at NFL embraced stuff like this back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, where this would have led all highlight reels going into the Sunday night when NFL primetime. That would have been definitely, you got jacked up. Yeah, exactly. But no, this does not happen anymore, especially not with quarterbacks. I mean, if this had been a hit on Patrick Mahomes, Al-Shaair had probably been banned for his entire life. I will not be surprised if the NFL hands out a suspension, because you cannot let quarterbacks take these kind of hits, especially when they are clearly sliding. I know it's gotten a little dicey this year because you have the fake slides, or some quarterbacks fake step out of bounds, kind of do that juke step, go back in and try and get a couple more yards, kind of like Caleb Williams did on Thanksgiving. I thought the Lions player made a fair hit because Caleb Williams decided to stay in bounds. That's the kind of hit you're going to take. But if you are a quarterback, you are giving yourself up. You cannot hit him like that. I mean, it was shocking to see that happen in the modern NFL.
Do we think there is, I'm just spitballing here, like another option besides sliding? Because sliding does, I mentioned Trent Green because that was one of the most brutal ones I've seen. But like, this is not an uncommon occurrence where a quarterback slides and their helmet is then the tallest point that is off the ground. So if someone is diving at them, that's what they hit. We were inches away just a few weeks ago. Brian Branch, I can't remember which game that was. I don't know if you remember, taking someone's head off in a similar situation. He did what Azeez Al-Shaair did, but just didn't clip the helmet of the quarterback. Is there another option in the open field besides sliding? Like someone, maybe if you just spike it, if you're in the open field, or do something that we can make sure that everyone knows, hey, the play is dead. Like, I just gave myself up, but I'm also not wanting to put myself in harm's way if a guy is really bearing down on me.
Well, and it's an interesting point because, as you said, some players start diving before the quarterback starts his slide. So it's not like he's intentionally trying to destroy the quarterback, but sometimes that just happens because the quarterback slides so late. And I'm not sure what you could do except maybe drop to a knee and then stand right back up. And if a QB does that, that's him giving himself up. Don't touch him. But even then, if a player is already starting his dive, I'm not sure what else to do except maybe the quarterback just kind of fumbles it out of bounds. Yeah, it does something like, I surrender, go ahead. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe you come up with that. You write a letter to Roger Goodell, and then we can call it the Renner rule.
There we go. I think we do need something because, unfortunately, now this one was obviously egregious, but there are situations where there is gray area where the Caleb Williams over the week on Thursday night or Thursday afternoon, I guess, gets hit in his hip. He wasn't happy about it, but it's like, I can't fault the defender in that situation. It was super late if Caleb was trying to slide. And if he was trying to slide, it was kind of an ugly attempt at it. So hard to really say what he was doing there. And it's still football. You still have to hit at the end of the day. So unfortunate in that one, but I think we all agree Azeez Al-Shaair, one ejection is not enough. I think 2+ game suspension is a minimum to just try to make sure that those type of hits aren't happening in the NFL. We have Harry, our producer, texting me saying, something from Ryan Wilson got sent into the show that he needs to show us. So what do we got here? Is that Kyle Long and Ryan Wilson? Oh, no. What's the tattoo there?
I got confused too. I thought it was Kyle and Ryan. It's Ryan's Snoopy tattoo that he got over a Bengals win over the Steelers back in 2020. I don't know. Ryan Finley was the quarterback, and Wilson said that if Ryan Finley beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, he would get a tattoo, and that is the tattoo. And I think Wilson probably sent it in really just kind of rub it in my face that the Steelers just put up
Steelers.
44 points on the Bengals, which is just disheartening.
I cannot imagine the scene at the Banks after that. It had to have been fist fights. It always is. It always was when I lived there. After Steelers games, if there wasn't multiple people leaving in handcuffs, it just wasn't the Steelers.
That's when all the fights start. That's when, if you don't go straight home, you're getting in a fight that night. If you're 100%. A fan.
All right, let's get to a little our fourth storyline here coming out of Sunday night. Rookie quarterback roundup, because I think all these guys have looked fantastic this season at times, but I think especially this week you saw some high-end play around the NFL from Caleb Williams. Goes 20 of 39, 256 yards, 3 touchdowns. What he did in the second half of that game, sans the final play, which we can get to here in a second. Jaden Daniels, 25 of 30, 206 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown, and an interception that was not the worst throw in the world, tipped off his receiver's hands. And then Drake May goes 24 of 30, 238 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. We haven't had you on to talk about these rookies, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you had to rank these three, just these three, because we haven't seen Bo Nix yet, we'll see him on Monday night. How would you rank them so far this season?
All right, if I had to rank them based on who has surprised me the most, then the answer is Drake May. So if I had to rank based on who I think is playing the best or who has played the best overall, it's Jaden Daniels. But Drake May went into the worst situation of any of these quarterbacks. He was kind of set up to fail. I mean, there's a reason Jacoby Brissett started the season because they didn't want Drake May to get sacked 14 times in week 1 and want to give up and retire from football after playing 3 games. So the Patriots don't have a great roster. I think we all know that. The offensive line's not great. They got an okay running game with Ramondre Stevenson, and they don't really have a star receiver. Caleb Williams out there throwing to Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Jaden Daniels has a Terry McLaurin, but Drake May doesn't have that, and yet the Patriots are in it every week. They're winning games they shouldn't win, losing games they shouldn't lose. They should have beaten the Colts on Sunday. So I have been very fascinated by the way Drake May has been playing. So he's my most surprising rookie, but Jaden Daniels, I think, you probably have to call the best rookie overall right now.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of those sentiments. The one thing I will note, though, is that I do think that all these guys, all these quarterbacks are franchise quarterbacks. I can't remember a time where we've had a rookie class, and it was heralded for a reason, obviously, pre-draft, but that's happened before, right? 2021 was specifically, it was only the second time in NFL history where quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3. It was called this awesome quarterback class, and here we are 4 seasons later, and it's like maybe Trevor, but even he hasn't lived up to the hype. But all of these guys who have played, and Bo Nix can get into that bucket too, and even the guys who haven't, and the reports from them in the preseason in terms of J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix, it's like there's been no reason for concern with any of them. Funnily enough, the one that has probably the most reasons for concern is the guy who was drafted number 1 overall, Caleb Williams. But even he, like, at times you're just in awe of what this guy is capable of. So I do think it can't be said enough how unique this is, that we're talking about 4 rookie starting quarterbacks all playing at a competent level right out the gate. And that the NFL, quite frankly, needed this. Like, we lost a lot of good QBs in the last 5 years in terms of just to retirement, not anything more than that. But this rookie quarterback class looks special.
Yeah, and one quick thing, I'm going to toot my horn, because Bo Nix was my preseason pick to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And the only reason I thought that, he looks good. And I know that people don't love that he's not throwing downfield as probably as often as some of these other quarterbacks. But, man, he is running Sean Payton's offense. That's what Sean Payton wants. He's saying, take the safe throws. We don't care about what your numbers look like at the end of the game. I want to win. I want you to throw an accurate ball. I want a high completion percentage, and the yards will come. And Bo Nix is just playing so intelligently that, we were only listing those 3, but maybe he's tied with Drake May as the most surprising for me. But it's just unbelievable what Bo Nix has done.
Yeah, I couldn't believe the discourse online this week about Bo Nix. That's people poking holes in his game. It's like, dude, this is a rookie quarterback who has not turned the ball over like the last 8 games. He just flat out isn't even putting the ball in harm's way. According to PFF, over his last 8 games, he has 2 turnover-worthy plays. It's the lowest in the NFL. That's just like unheard of stuff for a rookie. And it's not as if he's doing it by being completely Alex Smith. Now he's like high on the Alex Smith to Jameis Winston spectrum. He's far more towards Alex Smith, right, than Jameis Winston. But it's not like he's completely just checking it down every single time, never attacking down the football field. He does it at times. He does it when he needs to. And he doesn't make mistakes with football. It's like, what more do you really want a rookie quarterback to do? We can argue about what his ceiling is going to be at the NFL level. But if you're a Broncos fan who's had to watch some of the worst quarterbacks in modern NFL history.
Brock Osweiler.
Yeah, over the last almost decade since Peyton Manning retired, I think you're just pretty happy as hell that you got that guy 13th overall and didn't have to trade up any draft capital to go get him, right? Like it's not, we don't have to overcomplicate this and poke too many holes in this game. The guy's winning and he's a rookie. That's what more can you ask for?
It is crazy how the internet turns on people, though. And this wasn't the week to do it. I don't know why everyone turned on Bo Nix in the past week. Right? It's just been insane to read about, especially on X with, everybody's got an opinion, but it's just nuts that Bo Nix is being dragged through the mud.
All right. Number 5 on our Sunday night 6-pack is Eagles-Ravens, the game of the weekend, one of the biggest matchups. Just went final, and the Eagles feel inevitable at this point. They win 24-19, another 100-plus yard game from Saquon Barkley, but the bigger story coming out of this one, in my opinion, Justin Tucker. 2 more misses on the season. Are we pressing the panic button for what was, heading into this year, I believe, the most accurate kicker in NFL history, who's since lost that spot because he's just been so inaccurate over the course of this season?
Yeah, look, Renner, I don't know if Harry told you, but there's nothing I love to talk about more than kickers. I could have spent this whole podcast talking about only kickers. And for Justin Tucker to have this game after he's been struggling all year, and as bad as he's been all year, this is the first time in his career he has missed 3 kicks in a single game. He's missed 2 field goals before. He's missed an extra point before, but he's never missed 2 field goals and an extra point in the same game. And really, you have to start worrying because the Ravens look like a playoff team. I'm pretty sure they're going to make the playoffs. They're 8-5 at this point. They'd have to totally choke and collapse down the stretch, not to make the playoffs. But if you are the Ravens and you're in the wild card round and you need a 47-yard field goal to win, you're going to be crossing your fingers and pray to whoever you believe in that Justin Tucker can hit this, because he has not shown that he can hit these kicks this season. And the ones that he missed against the Eagles, it's not like these were big fourth quarter ones where there's a lot of pressure. It's just everything about what he's doing is off. He missed the 47-yarder to his left. That's where he's been missing all his kicks this season. So what does he do? He goes back, tries one beyond 50, overcompensates, and misses it right. That's why you can't just switch your kicking steps in the middle of a game. That's why kickers tend to miss. If they miss a bad one left, they probably do it again. And it's just, he's kind of in his own head right now. I don't think he knows what to do to fix this problem. And that's a Ravens problem, because if he can't fix it, no one can fix it. And their head coach is a special teams coordinator. So I think he is actually more worried than anyone, even though I don't think John Harbaugh will let on.
Yeah, it used to be the Ravens cross the 40, 3 points automatic. It's like they cross the 40, you don't even have to think about it. But now, 6 misses this year, and it kind of started a little bit last year because he missed 4 from beyond 50 last year when that was, he never did. Not never did, but like that was darn near automatic for him anytime he was in that range. And now it's like, you're going to need those come playoff time, because if they had both of those, they lost by 5. Obviously, it would have been vastly different at the end, the final drive and how it went down. But that was the difference in the game in this one. Let's get to the Eagles side of this, because obviously the Ravens, they're still going to make the playoffs. The AFC wildcard picture, we'll get to it in a little bit in the whole playoff picture, but pretty clear cut how that's going to go down. But from the Eagles' perspective, they are very much in play for this 1 seed after rattling off, what is it now, 7 straight wins? Coming out of their bye week, just look like a completely different team. Can they unseat the Lions for the 1 seed 1? And can this team win the Super Bowl too?
I think to get the 1 seed, obviously they are going to need the Lions to lose at least 1 game, if not 2. And now you look at the Lions schedule. They still have to play the Packers, the Bills, the 49ers. They close the season against the Vikings. There are a lot of possible losses on the schedule. So I don't think it's completely crazy to see Philly coming in and stealing the 1 seed, because this is really, they have Carolina left. Carolina looks pretty good, so maybe that's not a gimme anymore, but they still play the Giants, the Cowboys, and then they have games against the Steelers and Commanders that are a little more toss up. So I think Philly could absolutely steal the 1 seed. I probably wouldn't bet on it just because the Lions, have that game lead already. But I think from Philadelphia's perspective. You're an Eagles fan. You sat through a total nightmare last year of that second half collapse. And a lot of that is because the offense didn't play as well down the stretch as it did early in the season. And it feels like Saquon Barkley is that guy who plugged that big hole on the ship. Your ship's sinking. Barkley's the guy who plugged it. Well, guess what? Your offense can't collapse if you just keep giving the ball to Saquon Barkley, because he's just going to run down everyone's throat, and that gives Jalen Hurts time to fix whatever his issues are, allows the offense to get all on the same page. So I think Saquon Barkley is very worthy of being the MVP conversation, even though he likely won't win it because he's a quarterback. But it feels like he's the one missing piece this team needed. He's here, and there's no reason they can't win the Super Bowl. Yeah,
if you can run the ball the way they just did against what was the number one run defense in the NFL, I don't know who's going to stop him right at this point, because when you add Jalen Hurts in and that run his legs as a factor, and then just the offensive line and how insanely good it is from all, left to right, not a single guy in that's a issue as a run blocker, just pure mass, pure physical dominance week in and week out. I think I can run on anybody. Now, the problem is this passing game has been Jets level of effective all season long. It's just been difficult to watch at times. This week was really no different. And this should have been a get right game against what's been a poor secondary at times in the Baltimore Ravens. Still Hurts 11 of 19, 118 yards only passing. Obviously they didn't need to pass in this one to win the football game, but it's something that someone's going to probably stop the run. Someone's going to make a play left-hand, especially when you look at the playoff picture in the NFC. There's just so many good defenses that they'll likely have to go up against. That, do we trust them if it's a Jalen Hurts 40 drop back game? Do we trust that?
And I think that's a great point, because this was, if you want to see Jalen Hurts prove that he can put up huge numbers against a good team, this was the night to do it. Go put out 250, 275, 300 passing yards against a Ravens defense that literally cannot stop any quarterback except for somehow Jalen Hurts. I mean, I was shocked to see his final numbers. Below 150 was shocking. He didn't even hit 120. As you said, it was 118. So it is surprising, and it does seem like that's going to happen in the playoffs, because that's what teams do. They make you play left-handed. Everybody goes full Belichick once they get to the postseason. They say, you know what happens if we stuff the box and we take away Saquon Barkley? Can Jalen Hurts beat us? And right now, I think that is the one thing that kind of would scare me away from picking them to win the Super Bowl.
Still, though, this might be, with how they've played, especially since the bye, that might be the best defense in the NFL. They're just so good and so talented, too, that they look like last year, that was the issue, right? It was the defensive fall off. They had so much talent, but why wasn't it performing? This year, it's the opposite. It's like they got so much talent, and every guy who is one of their star players, or should be one of their star players, seemingly is playing as such. And the additions at linebacker and Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, seemingly every single week making big plays. The Vic Fangio effect cannot be understated. So, yeah, I tend to agree. I think the Eagles can still win the Super Bowl, but I am worried about the pass game. All right, Bucks, Panthers just went final. An insane ending in overtime. Panthers were in field goal range. Bryce Young had driven them down after the Bucks punted it away on their very first drive. Would have had a game-winning field goal. Chuba Hubbard fumbles the rock. Bucks go back the other way, kick a field goal to end it. So now we have a tie atop the NFC South. We'll get to that full playoff picture here in a second with both the Falcons and Bucks 6-6. Obviously, though, the Falcons have the tiebreaker with those 2 wins. Our last of the 6 points, though, on Sunday night here. Just a little Thursday, Friday recap. A lot of ground to cover with 4 games. What was your biggest takeaway, biggest thing to note from those 4 games we had over Thanksgiving?
I would probably say that the Packers are a lot better than I thought they were. And I thought they were good. Uh-oh, did I steal your answer?
No, I said music to my ears. That's perfect. I just went,
yeah.
Keep waxing. I love to hear it.
You didn't have your Green Bay shirt on, so I forgot that you paid me to say this. But look, I thought the Packers were good, but I was kind of on the fence with how good they were. But you have a Dolphins team that won 3 straight. They were absolutely desperate because they really needed that win to kind of stay in the AFC playoff race, not eliminated, but when teams are in desperation mode, especially talented teams, that's when they're the most dangerous. So I thought the Dolphins would go in there and give Green Bay a game, if not win it. And that didn't happen at all. I feel like early in the game, Miami had that muffed punt. And after Green Bay scored off that drive, it was just over. I mean, they were better on both sides of the ball. This game was never in doubt. The Green Bay Packers were absolutely a better team. And it's crazy. Maybe you have a theory on this, but last season, Jordan Love's first as the starter. By November 1st, Packers fans were ready to bench him. It was just, he was so bad, caught fire the second half of the season. And we're kind of seeing that November 1st thing again, where he looked okay the first half of the season, and now he's on fire again. So if Jordan Love is bringing his A game every week, this team could beat anyone.
I think I was when I was watching the game on Thursday, my takeaway was, I think Matt LaFleur just saves his good plays for the second half of the season. Like what he has done the past couple weeks in terms of scheming it up has been impressive to watch. He's kind of like been the anti-Cliff Kingsbury in that he just, the first half, just testing stuff out. And the second half, that's when he actually implements all the good stuff. That's, I'm obviously being a little tongue in cheek about it, but like he's been definitely in his bag of late, having sort of that second act to a season in terms of once they see your play, see what you're all about in the first half, do you have more in your bag that you can dig into to still keep defenses off balance? And he 100% had that in this one. A lot of stuff, a lot of big plays that just guys are running wild against Miami secondary. That's been one of the stingier pass defenses in the NFL this season. And I do think the first half was difficult to judge this Packers team by, whether it was that really weird Brazil game on that terrible turf, whether it was Jordan Love's injuries, trying to play with his MCL and then his groin, and just never felt like he could get into a rhythm or felt like he could go, a stretch with being healthy with all his playmakers on the football field. And now he's finally had it, right? He's finally had it the past few weeks. And so this was what I kept saying. I was like, we need to see if I think the Packers are going to be able to compete with now the Eagles and the Lions atop the NFC. If they're really going to be able to go into Detroit or go into Philly and win a playoff game, it's going to be because the offense looks like it did on Thursday night. It's going to be because Jordan Love lives up to what everyone thought he could be when they were saying, maybe this is the top quarterback in the NFC. It's going to have to be that. On Thursday, it kind of looked like it. On Thursday, was the first time, maybe not the first time, I think at times they've had, but where I was like, okay, in a game with that sort of billing against a team that's been super hot in the Miami Dolphins, to come out and just bury them offensively the way they did, that if you want to believe in the Green Bay Packers, that was the game to watch. That was it. So I can't help but agree wholeheartedly with your assessment there. My biggest one, though, Matt Eberflus getting fired, man. I just I cannot believe my eyes what I saw. I was on CBS Sports Network. I'm talking on camera. I have my phone underneath me. I'm watching this game as we're discussing whatever, Thursday Night Football and just other football storylines, previewing the later games. And I am like 32 seconds. All right. A handful more plays. We're thinking like 4 more plays at that point. I didn't think at any point that I'm just like seeing it tick down. And then I'm seeing them like audible, make adjustments. This guy get on the line. This guy get off the line. I'm just like, this is going to be it. Like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And he overthrows it. And it's just like, one, it's hard to blame Matt Eberflus too much for that. To me, that is quarterback situation right there. You either take the timeout right away, or the quarterback knows just like, don't do that, right? So like, don't take 20 seconds and audible and change the play. But after that, I was like, if it keeps happening under a guy, right? If things of this nature keep happening, at some point he's allowing it, and at some point it's just like the locker room's gone. And I do think that's the biggest thing, is just hearing people talk about the team and their direction, and just every single week in and week out, the reaction from players after losses is not what you want from a well-coached football team. It just doesn't reflect a well-coached football team. And at that point, I think it had to happen. It just had to happen for the Chicago Bears. Yeah,
absolutely. It's not even, look, you can blame Caleb Williams. I think it's absolutely fair, but he's a rookie quarterback. This isn't like Patrick Mahomes making that mistake. So if a rookie's out there making that mistake, I think that's on the coaching staff, where you need to practice these situations. What happens where Matt Eberflus needs to say, Caleb, if we're ever in the situation, you have to get the snap off with at least 10 seconds left. And then Eberflus needs to tell himself, if the snap's not off, I need to call a timeout so that we don't just give the game away, which is what happened. So I do think it's absolutely fair to blame the coaching. You almost had to fire him. You look at what they've done this season, that 5-17 record, worst in NFL history in one-score games. And you look at the Commanders game, that Hail Mary, the play before it, when they were in prevent and just gave Washington 13 free yards. Jaden Daniels wasn't going to throw the ball 70 yards in the air. So the Hail Mary wouldn't have happened if that play before. the blocked field goal where he has a kicker, Cairo Santos, who has a low trajectory, had already had a 43-yard field goal blocked earlier in the season. So try and get more yardage. You have plenty of time. You had a timeout. So that's 3 losses, I think, you can pin on Eberflus just this year. And for me, if I'm running the Bears, that's 3 strikes and you're out. That sounds about right.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, those are our 6 points, but now we're going to go for 2. Our biggest takeaways, biggest parting shots, and I'm going to hit mine first because it leads off of what we just talked about, and it's pairing a rookie first-round quarterback, and especially in the Bears situation, a number 1 overall pick quarterback, with a head coach who's on a prove-it deal. To me, is the worst possible thing you can do as a franchise in terms of trying to be a well-run organization. What do I not want to do? I don't want to have a quarterback, or a head coach with his job on the line, responsible for developing my number 1 overall pick, like the Bears just did with Matt Eberflus. Get a guy in there to set a direction, a tone that will be stable for at least, let's say, in today's NFL, you have to really bottom out to not get more than 1 year, but like you're at least getting 2 years of stability for this first overall pick. And obviously we saw with the Panthers last year, they tried to do that. He got fired halfway through the season, but in most cases, that's what you want to do. You want to give him a situation where he can grow as the head coach grows, not one where it's like the head coach has to make decisions that are very short-term in nature, because he has to know his job's on the line. And now you're at a point where Caleb went from one offense coordinator to another midseason, and now he's going to get a third this offseason. And it's like, why do bad organizations stay bad? It's decisions of this nature that just never made sense. They did it previously with their GM and Justin Fields, having a lame duck GM get to draft him to try to save his job, to go trade up and get Justin Fields, and then he gets fired the next year after he made that pick. It's just like, if you want organizational stability, you got to practice organizational stability. You can't just be flying by the seat of your pants saying we're too cheap to go out and get a new head coach because this one hasn't quite worked out, so we're going to give him a third year. No, I think the Bears are reaping what they sowed last offseason. And, well, that's why they ain't making the playoffs this year.
Renner, that is why I'll nominate you for the next general manager job that comes open. I don't know where it's – maybe not if it's in Jacksonville or something like that. I'll make sure –
I'd go to Jacksonville.
Okay, well, then perfect.
Tony Khan. Tony Khan went to my high school. We're boys.
You guys are – you already have an in then. You're already hired. Yeah. Since they'll be probably cleaning house. Yeah, mine's not really a parting shot, but I just want to note – look, it's going to be about kickers. We started the season just fawning over kickers. Look, they're doing as good as they've ever done from long distance. Kickers can't miss from beyond 50 yards. Well, guess what? They're missing everything else. Inside 50 yards, kickers have absolutely fallen apart. I don't know what's going on. We saw it on Sunday. You go to the Cardinals Vikings game. Arizona lost by 1. Chad Ryland missed a 45-yard field goal. We saw it in the Patriots-Colts game. Patriots lost by 1. Joey Sly missed a 25-yard field goal, the shortest missed field goal attempt by any kicker this year. Of course, I do want to give Joey Sly a shout out because he came about 2 feet from hitting a 60-yard field goal. Which
that was insane.
That would have given me a heart attack and I would have died.
If that was normal weather, you think he makes that?
Oh, yeah. I think because
75 degrees.
Yes, absolutely. Because cold weather, it takes about 1 or 2 yards off your kick. And I do think if it was 70, 75 degrees, he hits that. So that was crazy, but he also missed that 25-yarder. You mentioned Younghoe Koo earlier. He missed a 35-yarder. Falcons lost by 4. That field goal probably changes the complexion of that game. And you also mentioned Justin Tucker, not the NFL's most accurate kicker anymore. That's because the honor going into this week belonged to Eddie Pinheiro of Carolina. Guess what he did? 2 missed field goals. He missed from 38 and 45 in a 3-point loss to the Buccaneers. So we've had at least 3 games this year where kickers missed from inside 45 in a game that was decided by 1 score. So it's just bizarre to me to see all these missed kicks, but really it's an epidemic. And I think that's the problem with trying to replace Justin Tucker is who do you even bring in to replace him? Because everybody's missing right now. So I'm not sure what you do, but man, if you are a team that lost on a missed field goal, I feel sorry for you. And there's nothing you can do.
Is there, I'm just trying to like high level, do kickers because early in the season, we were talking about, I think it was only 1 kicker missed to like the first 4 weeks from under 40. There was like 1 missed kick. or maybe more than that. And it was all the Packers kicker whose name escaped me because they replaced him already. But there was an unreal bevy of accuracy throughout the NFL in terms of kicking kickers. But like throughout the course of the season, do they kick too much and get like a little overuse, and then all of a sudden maybe your hip's a little looser and it's just like your actually goes down? Or why would kickers later in the season start missing as much as we've seen here? Do you have any like reason for it?
The theory would be twofold. One is, we just mentioned the colder weather. It's more difficult to kick in cold weather. So, when you're playing in a game where it's 25 degrees, it's just the ball doesn't go as far. You can't control it as well. And
your legs got to stay warm too. I feel like that's also, you have to keep it loose on the sidelines when it's cold. You're just like losing the blood flow.
And that's absolutely an underrated aspect, because if you're a kicker, you only try 2 field goals in the game. That means you are sitting on the sideline for 3 hours and you get maybe 15 seconds of action plus halftime warm-up, pregame warm-up. But if you're listening to this, go sit outside in 30-degree weather for 3 hours and then try and do anything. You can't, because your whole body is stiff and miserable. The other part is that as you get later in the season, the kicks are just more high pressure, and there is no way to practice high pressure kicks in practice. You just got to hope your guy has the head for it, and not everyone does.
All right. Those are our go for 2, our parting shots on Sunday night here. We're going to take a quick break and go through the playoff picture. Week 13, almost in the books. The stretch run coming up. We're going to get to how each division and the wild cards are stacking up right after this.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount Plus. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Let's start with the AFC here, where the division winners are, I don't want to say set in stone at this point, but 3 of them look like locks. One literally is a lock. The Bills have already clinched the AFC East at 9-2. Chiefs obviously own the 1 seed at 11-1. Steelers still atop the North after their win today, and their lead grows with the Ravens' loss, game and a half lead for them in the AFC North. And then the AFC South, Texans at 8-5. The Colts, though, nipping on their heels a little bit at 6-7. Your wild card teams, as it stands, you have the Baltimore Ravens at 8-4, Los Angeles Chargers at 8-4, and then the Denver Broncos at 7-5. Do we see any team on the outside looking in here making a playoff push down the stretch, or is it going to be these 7 teams and the order is really all we're up for grabs at this point?
Well, we already said the Bengals are done, so we can't go down to 10. The Dolphins are intriguing, but I will say the Colts feel like the only team that could steal one of these 3 wild card spots. And that's only because they still play the Broncos. So if Indy goes out and beats the Broncos, now that spot is wide open. And they play, Indy has a week 14 bye, and then they play in week 15. So if Denver were to get upset on Monday night against Cleveland, that really opens the door for the Colts to steal a spot. And then you look at the rest of the Colts schedule. Besides the Broncos, Mike, they play the Tennessee Titans, the New York Giants, and then they close the season with Jacksonville. So 3 very, very winnable games if they can beat Denver. So I'll say the Colts as my only maybe.
Well, I also think they could, and now it would take a lot because they don't have the tiebreaker, but they could unseat the Texans, the top of the South, even if they've lost to them twice. So they have to literally get above them in the standings to take the South. But the Texans schedule going into the barn here: Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, Titans. Titans one you could probably chalk up to a win, but if the Colts win out, I think there's a good chance that they could be your AFC South champion. Now it's going to be difficult, and wild card is probably an easier path, but still a chance for them there. I think it's these 7 though. Truthfully, I just don't see. I just don't think the Colts are good enough, right? I don't think they're good enough. And Miami had their shot. I thought if they beat the Packers in Lambeau, they actually had a real good shot of getting back into this. But that was it. They have too many difficult games still on their schedule and just too much ground to make up at this point. So I think that's that. The only thing is still the 1 seed, coveted 1 seed, the only team that gets the bye now in the NFL with their playoff structure. Bills will have that tiebreaker head-to-head with the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Chiefs, life support every single week. They put their fan base through it, but they come out with a win every single week. Do we think the Chiefs still come away with the 1 seed?
So we talked about a little earlier about the Lions. The Eagles may be catching the Lions. I feel like the Lions probably get the 1 seed there. In the AFC, I am not so sure. You just look at what the Chiefs have left on their schedule. They still have to play the Steelers. They still have to play the Chargers, the Broncos, the Texans. And as you said, they've been playing with fire every week. And eventually you spill the gasoline on your arm and your whole body catches on fire. That's what happens. You keep doing this, Kansas City. At some point, that your house of cards is going to come collapsing in. So I think I could see, and just because Buffalo has that regular season tiebreaker, I think that I could see the Bills catching the Chiefs at number 1.
It is insane. The Chiefs are 11-1, but they have a point differential this season of only 54, plus 54. The Broncos are better. The Chargers are better in terms of point differential on the season. They really eke by it seemingly every single week, but hey, good teams. That's why they
win.
They
win games.
They win games. All right, let's get to the NFC, where the wild card picture is not even really up for debate at this point. A lot better than the AFC, as we have the Vikings at 10-2, Green Bay Packers at 9-3, Commanders at 8-5. Some darn good teams still in the wild card mix. The NFC West, really the only division, not the only division, but still up for grabs here, with the Seahawks now leading at 7-5 after back-to-back massive wins. From then, back-to-back massive losses, unfortunately for the Cardinals, drops them out of the playoff picture altogether at 6-6. Rams needed that win over the Saints to stay alive at 6-6 in the NFC West, where everyone still mathematically alive. And now the NFC South is realistically in play. Falcons obviously on the tiebreaker with those 2 wins over the Bucs this season, where Kirk Cousins went off in both. But Bucs coming on strong now at 6-6. They look like a much better offense now at full strength with Mike Evans back healthy. If you had to say right now, who do you think are your NFC West and NFC South winners at the end of the day?
All right. In the NFC South, I am going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Falcons have looked so badly, and that might have changed if they had lost on Sunday against the Panthers. They pulled out that overtime win, and you just look at their schedule. They play the Raiders, the Panthers, the Cowboys, the Saints. They only have 1 game left against a team with a winning record. That's the Chargers, and the Bucs are good enough to win that game. And so you look at the Falcons, they've just been so bad over the past few weeks. I can't really see them bouncing back now that they're in a tie. Maybe if they had that 1 game cushion, especially because they had the tiebreaker, but I can see the Buccaneers finishing 1 or 2 games ahead of them. I think the NFC West is kind of a total coin toss at this point. I'd love to say the Seahawks since they're in first, but I'm going to go with my preseason prediction, the Los Angeles Rams, even though it's not an easy road. But all these teams play each other. Like the Rams will have to play the Cardinals and the Seahawks and the 49ers. So this won't be settled on the field, but I'll go with LA for now.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers end up taking it, but I think the Seahawks, they have that little cushion right now. It's because I predicted them in the beginning of the season to win the West, and I want that to come true for my own edification. But I do think this defense is a different animal right now. Obviously gave up 21 points to the Jets, but a lot of that came after a kick return and then a fumbled kick return on the way back, like an insane series of events there that occurred. So I think the Seahawks defensive resurgence is for real. They have a ton of talent on that side of the football at every single level. And because of that, I think they end up sneaking the NFC West out. But I do know the wild card picture. You don't want that third wild card. You want one of the first 2 wild cards because you'll either be playing the NFC West winner or the NFC South winner. You don't want to be playing the NFC North or the NFC East winners. Both the Eagles and the Lions look like houses. All right, let's go to the flip side of the coin here. Draft order. How does the top 10 look as it stands right now after the games that we've seen week 13? Tankathon, as always, shout out to them for all the work they do, giving us our up-to-date draft order. But the Jags stay at number 1, have lost 5 straight now. I don't know if we see Trevor Lawrence the rest of the season. And if that's the case, they may be stuck at number 1 the rest of the year. Las Vegas Raiders, I think they're winning some games. Now, they lost 8 straight, but they almost beat the Chiefs. They beat the Ravens earlier this year. They do not feel like a team that should be picking in the top 2 when it's all said and done. The New York Giants at number 3, losers of 7 straight. They do feel like a team who should be picking in the top 2 when it's all said and done. They stink right now. But after those 3, it's the Patriots, the Panthers, the Jets, the Titans, the Browns, the Saints, and then the Bengals round out the top 10 of your draft order. As it stands right now, there's 2 quarterbacks that I think a lot of draft analysts are saying are probably going to be worthy of those top of the draft picks. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. We'll see how that shakes out when it's all said and done. But I feel pretty confident saying those guys will go highly. Who do we think ends up with the top 2 picks? And then who among those top 10 teams do we think really needs to go get those quarterbacks?
Well, I think when you look at everyone you kind of just mentioned that, the Raiders are still trying to win games. We saw them Black Friday, New England, Carolina, they're still playing tough. But I look at 3 teams really that I could see losing a lot more games. It's Jacksonville and it's the 2 teams in the Big Apple, the Jets and the Giants. So then you look at those 3, Jacksonville being a dicey situation. I don't think you can really draft a quarterback after you just gave Trevor Lawrence $55 million per year, even though you may not feel comfortable with how he's been playing and all the injuries he's been racking up. Obviously the concussion today was an ugly hit, but he's been dealing with other injuries this season. Of course, they would probably trade the pick away and be more than happy to do that. But the Giants would be they would love to get a quarterback, obviously. And then the Jets, that would get a little awkward, especially if Aaron Rodgers is trying to stay for another season. Woody Johnson's like, hey, Aaron, that royal honey I gave you from Queen Elizabeth? I want that back, and you have to go back to California. We don't want you anymore, because that's where this feels like it's going. So I think the Jets and the Giants probably have the best chance to get the top 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think the Giants – I think John Mara sent out the memo saying we're going to be drafting the top 2, right? I think he organizationally, he's like, we're done.
Yeah.
We're shut it down this season. I'm tired of watching what I've seen on the football field. We want a guy who looks competent at the quarterback position. And so I think they ultimately, that's the winner of the game this season. And I think that's almost by design at this point. But man, it's hard to see Jacksonville. If it is Mac Jones the rest of the way, it's hard to see them winning too many more games either.
Yep.
So, and if the Jags are drafted, they're a trade down. And that almost could be the best thing for them, is to end up with an open overall pick. Get a haul of draft picks, because it went so south there in the Trent Baalke era from a roster building perspective. Truly worse every single year since he took over and they had that playoff run. It's just been all downhill, unfortunately. Kind of same old Jags. But we'll be tracking that every single Sunday as the season wears on here. And shout out to John Breech. Thanks so much, man, for joining us. First time on the show. We'll be having him back on some Sundays going forward, but it should be a rotating cast of characters every single Sunday. We'll be back tomorrow on the 1 p.m. show on CBS Sports Network with Matt Ryan. And then we'll be back Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern with Pete Prisco. Until next time, keep pushing.